Hey everybody, it's Buzz. Some of you guys might know this, but I'm a little bit of a RWBY fan. I had to get the collection together and make a video because of the new RWBY anime that just came out. Just got the first 3 episodes of the RWBY Ice Queendom anime by Studio Shaft. And, as the world's self-proclaimed biggest RWBY fan, I kind of had to watch it. I'm kind of morally obligated at this point, I think. I watched those first 3 episodes today. I just finished it about a half hour ago. And, I do have some thoughts about the series that I want to get out. RWBY Ice Queendom is an animated series co-produced by Rooster Teeth Productions and Studio Shaft. The series will air for 12 episodes. And besides the dub information, that's the only opening statement on the wiki. RWBY Ice Queendom presents RWBY in beautiful 2D anime visuals. RWBY imagines a world filled with horrific monsters bent on death and destruction, and humanity's only hope is dependent upon powerful huntsmen and huntresses. The 4 main characters of the series are huntsmen and huntresses named Ruby Rose, Wai Shni, Blake Belladonna, and Yang Xiaolong. Pretty much the series starts out just showing them trying to make their way through Beacon Academy, which is the training school for the hunters. There's drama, there's character drama, there's emotional stuff, and there's also cool fight scenes. One thing that people don't really like about RWBY is the 3D animation. And this new version of RWBY seems to pretty much entirely rectify that, with pretty much everything being animated in 2D animation by Studio Shaft, with very little 3D. Most of the 3D in this version is like background enemies and robots and flying ships and stuff like that. Most of it is a very beautiful 2D animation. Studio Shaft is an extremely talented anime studio, and they really did a good job with this one. The animation is pretty phenomenal most of the time. There are some times when the animation does feel a bit unfinished and a little rushed. Studio Shaft is pretty well known for having a lot of rushed animation that later gets fixed in Blu-rays, so I wasn't too surprised when I saw it in this one. But in general, the animation is extremely good and far better than the original 3D animation for RWBY. So episode 1 of this series starts out with a mix of adapting the original Volume 1 of RWBY, and bringing back content from 2 of the original trailers for RWBY. So back in the day, there were 4 trailers created for RWBY, which were all created by Monty and they were released on the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel to create hype for the original show, RWBY. And these trailers are basically just fight scenes involving the RWBY characters, and it was all extremely high-octane, extremely fast-paced, and with Monty wonderful 3D style of choreography, and 2 of those were actually brought back into the show. So the white trailer, the Wise one, the one where she shows how Wise got her scar, that is actually the beginning of the show. And the trailer involving Blake, where she leaves the White Fang, that's also in this as well. So it was really fun to see that content, which was previously not in the original show of RWBY, but was only made as like promotional material, and actually see that be brought into the first episodes themselves, because those are really cool. Those are some really awesome fight scenes. Those old trailers Monty made are definitely really cool, and I'm really glad that they brought them back into this. Episode 1 also includes the scene with RWBY in the dust shop that gets robbed at the beginning of the original series. And that is a very beautiful recreation of that scene. The animation is absolutely phenomenal. It's probably the best looking scene in the entire series that they showed so far. They really pulled out all the stops. The vocal track OST in that scene is also extremely good. Really is reminiscent of the original soundtrack of RWBY. And it really feels like the first bit really does feel like a true anime adaptation of RWBY, and they did a wonderful job. Then, of course, the show goes into the beginning of the Beacon arc, where all the characters are on the airship to Beacon. And, so far, at this point, it's still very true to the original show. And so it's basically just RWBY with better animation. Then episode 2 adapts the field training arc from Volume 1, which they have to go into a forest to bring back some relics, while also fighting Grimm in the meantime, since it's a Grimm-infested forest. And, they skipped a lot of content in that. A whole bunch of scenes are cut. They really, really trim it down. It kind of reminds me of the manga adaptation of RWBY in that way, where they cut out a whole bunch of content just to kind of get to the fight really quickly. Which is fine. I mean, I would definitely say in the original RWBY Volume 1, there's way too much, like, slice of life. Some of the cuts felt a little cheap. There were some jarring transitions that felt like if you hadn't seen the original RWBY, you might be confused on different things. Like, there's some lore explanations which get completely skipped in this, which is a little unfortunate. But anyways, it goes into the Nevermore fight scene, which is the most famous fight scene in all of RWBY. A lot of people consider the Nevermore fight to be the best RWBY fight. In the original show, it was an extremely high-octane fight involving Team RWBY and Team Juniper as they take down the giant scorpion and the giant bird. And of course, the Casey Lee vocal track, of course, backing it up. The way they adapted this kind of is my first complaint with the show. So the Nevermore fight scene has changed a lot. Basically, a lot of the characters have very slow movements and don't really do much, and a lot of the insane Monty camera work and stuff that made the original scene so cool is completely gone. I still think Studio Shaft did a great job. As an anime fight scene, I think it's great. I feel like the Nevermore fight became very, very simplified in a way where they didn't really need to. And of course, the soundtrack is gone as well. They replaced it with a pretty basic anime fight scene music. Nothing crazy. No vocals, none of the crazy upbeat stuff that made the original scene so impactful. And honestly, it feels unfinished. The Nevermore fight definitely felt unfinished to me. The thing is like every other scene in this so far in these first 3 episodes that they showed is pretty much substantially better than the original 3D RWBY. Pretty much everything got improved besides that one fight scene. So one complaint out of pretty much everything being a positive, that's not too bad. Going into episode 3, it actually doesn't adapt anything at first. It actually starts in a brand new anime-only arc involving a new symbiotic, dream-stealing Grimm. And there's also a brand new character which gets introduced. So I'm not opposed to there being some anime original RWBY content. Honestly, like, I kind of always wished there was more to the Beacon arc, which was actually interesting and not slice of life in the original show. And I'm glad that they're adding more stuff, you know? Expanding on the RWBY world before the fall arc, I definitely think it's a good decision. And then for the second half, they adapt the first Faunus arc involving Blake being found out. And this introduces another main ensemble character, Sun Wukong. He's the guy that has a monkey tail and can like hang off stuff with his tail. And he's also like a comedy relief character, but he's also like a good comedy relief character in the original show at least. In this series, in this one, we don't actually see too much of him so far. But from what they did show of Sun, it seems like a very pretty faithful adaptation. Of course, Penny gets introduced. Dude, what they did to Penny is hilarious. So, mild RWBY spoilers for Volume 2. I don't actually know if anyone cares for RWBY spoilers for Volume 2. But there is a character introduced who is a robot. Her name is Penny. And in the original show, she's introduced as a very normal girl who just appears to be very sheltered. And you find out later the reason why she acts sheltered is just because she's a robot and she's not like absorbed many human interactions, so to speak. In this show, they kind of flip it entirely and make RWBY and make Penny literally very obviously robotic, but it's hilarious. Like, she's so adorable. Like, they made her super, super adorable. They really go in hard on the anime kawaii look on her. And it works. It works. It's funny and cute, and I think it's a good direction for the character. Because then they can add in more character building as she, like, learns more about humans. Because in the show, she doesn't actually change much in the first few volumes. In this series, it seems like they have a lot more leeway with actually making her act more human from the get-go, which I think is a great choice. Another change I want to touch on, Ren and Nora. Ren acts pretty much the same as he always did, but Nora, they changed a bit. In the original RWBY show, Nora is introduced as more of a goofball character. In this one, they kind of change it a bit, and they really go in on the whole pink outfitted anime lolly look. Again, it's another change which I think can work. Because of her backstory, I think a lot like Penny, I think the way they changed her character is gonna be good for any possible character development, because it'll show up a bit stronger in the anime with the character changes. The adaptation is pretty good. They skip a lot of content, especially like slice of lifey interactions get completely skipped, and kind of tightens things up, but kind of makes the pacing a bit nicer. And with the new arc that they introduced, you know, these first 3 episodes is about an hour long, and the original volume 1 was 90 minutes. So, you know, they cut it down a bit. If you watch all 3 episodes back to back, it still feels like a decent amount of time. It doesn't feel like they are rushing as much as they just like cleaned it up. Yeah, so I'm extremely excited to see what happens with this series. I'm kind of curious to see what the new arc is going to bring, because they're definitely going into an anime-only arc with this one. I wouldn't say you have to watch anything else involving RWBY before you watch this anime, but it definitely would help for context, because I kind of feel like they skipped over some things a bit too quickly. Studio Shaft did such a good job with the animation in this one. There's some really stunning scenes here. I'm very happy with this adaptation. It was far better than I expected. Honestly, I was worried. I was worried it would be actually just bad. And I was blown away. It was good. It was far better than I anticipated it would be. And I can't wait to watch more. So, thanks for watching, everybody. And, see you next time, I guess.
本物のダンスを見せて